Hello, everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. The precision flying of the Blue Angels demonstration squadron has left audiences in awe for decades. Well, there's a new movie now that takes fans behind the scenes and into the cockpits of those blue and gold fighter jets for an entire season. It's called The Blue Angels, and it's available for you to see right now on Prime Video. One of the pilots featured in that film is Major Frank Zastoupil, who is now stationed here in North Carolina at Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Station. I spoke to Major Zastoupil about his time with the Blue Angels, and I found out that even though the planes in the air may get a lot of the attention, it takes an entire team and a lot of trust to make it all work. Major Zastoupil, we appreciate your time. Welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
Is it as exciting flying around in those FA-18 fighter jets for you as it is for the fans who are watching you perform your amazing demonstrations?
I spent 3 fantastic years on that team, and it is some of the absolute best flying you can do anywhere in the entire world. And what I'll say is it truly is just as exciting in that plane as it is from the ground watching what's going on up in the air. And the team this year in 2024, it is now, is doing incredibly well. They have a couple weeks left of their show season. They're going to continue inspiring that next generation of military aviators.
What was it like, Major, when you walked up and saw your name stenciled on the side of one of those beautiful aircraft?
You know, when you wake up when you're about 5 years old or so, and you just have this incredible dream, and I don't know, when you're 5, it may be flying fighter jets, it may be riding a dinosaur, I don't care, but you're so excited when you wake up. That was what it was like. The first day you show up and your name is painted on any jet, any airplane out there, whether it's a blue and gold one or whether it's a gray F-35 that we have right here at Cherry Point, North Carolina. It's an incredible opportunity and an incredible experience. It's surreal to see your name on the side of a multi-million-dollar airplane.
Is it a little intimidating, though? Because, I mean, you know, those who watch, and I've watched the documentary twice because I loved it.
But more than me.
It's got to be a little intimidating, though, isn't it?
There's certain aspects that are intimidating about flying or even watching the demo, of course. But we on the team and the current team will be the first ones to tell you that there's an optimal stress continuum that we strive to balance in our lives. And whether that's just at work flying an airplane, or whether that's out talking to community members, or whether that's enjoying spending time with family, there's always that continuum of stress. You're able to optimize that with the appropriate training and day-to-day activities.
How did the process begin for you? I know you were you fell in love with airplanes at an air show when you were growing up in Texas, but how did the process begin of you saying, hey, I'd like to see if I can get into the Blue Angels?
Sure. So, yeah, I guess that's one of the first things you hear in the movie is about me when I was 4 years old in Fort Worth, Texas, and my dad ended up losing me at the air show, so he got over the loudspeaker and had to come find me. How did I get into it? That's a great question. My family has had a history of military service. That has been something that was ingrained in us when we were very, very little. From my grandfather serving in the Navy to then both the 2 older cousins of our huge family, both serving in the Marine Corps, still current active duty Marines stationed down in New Orleans, and one woman's about to go over to Yuma here in just a few short months. They kind of helped guide me into the correct branch of service. And in their own words, they use some different words, but I'll keep it politically correct here. They said, if you join any other service besides the Marine Corps, you're no longer in part of the Allison family Christmas. So I joined the Marine Corps instead of any other service. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It was something that I was inspired to do from that young age, and it just reinvigorated my passion to go fly airplanes. I will tell you that in college, I went to Texas A&M University, and I had some very, very helpful professors and mentors there at the university. And it's a military background school as well. And they helped as well shape me and guide me to become a Marine. And what's interesting about Marine aviation is you're not just a pilot first. You're not just you're a Marine first. You go out as an officer and you learn how to lead a rifle platoon. You learn how to locate, close with, and destroy an enemy on the ground before you ever get into a fighter jet, before you even learn how to fly a prop plane, which is the first plane that we learned how to fly going into flight school. So once I joined the Marine Corps, that was step one. I did the basic school up in Quantico, Virginia. And that is 6 to 7-ish months of training where you run around the woods of Virginia, just southwest of DC, and you're fighting some invisible Centralian forces, and you're learning the basics of leadership. You're learning the basics of being able to effectively communicate your game plan, your tactic, what you need everyone on your team to do that day to be able to locate, close with, and destroy that enemy on the ground. Once we're done with that, learning the very, very basics of leadership. And I'm telling you, it is the basics of leadership. But it inspires that foundation to which you can grow upon. And you go down to flight school in Pensacola, Florida. That's where it's called the Cradle Naval Aviation for a reason. Every single naval aviator begins their career in Pensacola, Florida. And that's also one of the big reasons that the Blue Angels utilize Pensacola as our home air station.
Right.
It's the Cradle Naval Aviation. It's the heart of the blue and gold, and that community is extremely supportive of that team being down in that area. So you kind of start in Pensacola. You learn kind of the basics of flying. You learn about weather. You learn about a cloud. You learn how bad you're going to do in the airplane here in just a few short years. And then you go from there and you go start flying. For me, the T-34, now it's the T-6 to begin your aviation career. You'll go do some basic formation flights. You'll learn about looping an airplane, about stalling an airplane, any of the very basic things about flying before you get selected out of that school to either go fly a jet airplane, an Osprey, a helicopter, a C-130, any of those things. For me, at my time, I really wanted to fly jets, going back to that dream when I was 4. So I was able to select jets out of basic primary flight school. I worked my tail off in jets to be able to select what I wanted to fly, which at the time was the Hornet. I wanted to go Hornets and Miramar. You know, I was a huge Top Gun fan myself.
Right.
Hornets, Miramar, as close as we can get to F-14s. And that's where it's at. That's the land of milk and honey. We want to get to Miramar. My wife at the time, she wanted Miramar as well. And then God had a different plan for us at the time, and he sent us to Harriers. We had something called a Harrier cut. Your grades had to be a certain level to go fly. Whatever the reason was, they selected me to go fly Harriers. And I will tell you, it has been the biggest blessing in disguise that I've had in my career. It helped shape everything past that moment to what I've been able to do, or what little I've been able to accomplish in my life. I kind of can attribute a little bit of that to that selection to go fly the Harrier right here in North Carolina. That plane has a history in North Carolina, a history with Mag 14 second mall. It has a history, and it is part of the backbone of what makes Cherry Point and Havelock so great to this community. It has been around for so many years, and that's where I got my kind of cut my teeth in deployments and going to combat was in the Harrier. From the Harrier, I wanted to fly the F-35 extremely badly, so I was very selfish to my CO and said, "Sir, thank you so much for training me in the Harrier. I would really like to go fly the newest, hottest, best thing out there." And I was very lucky to be board selected to go fly the F-35. I went down to Beaufort, South Carolina after years of hard work. And I'm talking this is just a representation of every single naval aviator and Marine out there. It takes years of hard work and study. As you know, doing news anchor, every single thing you do takes complete dedication. So flying the F-35 for a couple years. And then I was extremely lucky again. Timing was correct. I bought the right bottle of beverage of choice to the right person that day. I don't know, but they picked me to go join the Blue Angels. And that was that dream, that kind of culminating event in 2019 that wrapped everything up from when I was 4 years old. And that was just the beginning. To me, honestly, sir, that was just the beginning. So all these different steps, all these different paths in life that I've seen, these forks have just led me down a certain trail that has just been an absolutely eye-opening, incredible experience. I've been able to meet people along this path, partly due to the Blue Angels and just the networking and the vast visibility that organization gets, and it's incredible and is well deserved. I meet people like you, sir. I meet people like the fine gentleman sitting right here in this room with me today. I meet people that otherwise I might not be able to meet, and that's what this game's all about. It's about the people. we kind of talked, or I did. Sorry, I'm just talking a lot, but we talked about that leadership role, and it truly is. You're trying to just communicate your plan to other people, but it's a people game, and that's what I truly value the most in this, and that's what the Blues really taught me and instilled in me to an even greater extent. Is it's about the people. It's about those people you're serving alongside with every single day. It's about the people that when you're on the Blue Angels team and you're that Marine representative or that Navy representative, it's not about you. Nobody cares what this face looks like. They see the blue suit, now a green suit for me, but they see that suit and they see what that suit represents. And it represents 800,000 people, men, women, service members, civilian contractors, support personnel that are out there doing the real thing every single day. And that's what it's truly about, is representing those people.
Take me back to the day you found out that you had made the Blue Angels. Phone call, email, how did that all work?
It's always a phone call. Yes, sir. So the day I found out I was a Blue Angel, you call in at a very specific time. And it's all about details with the Blues, and that's for good reason. If you're off by this much in the air, you're probably hitting another airplane. And that's terrifying. Like even to this day, when I go fly the F-35, like I did 2 nights ago or whatever, it's terrifying to fly that close to another airplane, but you just get used to it on the Blues. Anyways, that phone call, you call on the exact time. I can't remember my time. It's something like probably 10:34 a.m. Eastern time, something like that. And you had to call in on the exact second. So you're sitting there calculating up, all right, if it takes from North Carolina to Pensacola, Florida, or South Carolina for me at the time, I'm going to give that 3 to 4 seconds for the phone to ring right on the dot. So you're gaming it out. Sure enough, it was Boss Doyle at the time. He answers the phone. And of course, you're nervous as all get out. I'm sitting in my backyard in Beaufort, South Carolina. My wife's here. We had friends over at the time, so I'm like trying to get away from my friends while I'm on the phone, trying to block the noise. And they always kind of joke with you a little bit, or they did with me. And they make you kind of feel a little down on yourself. And then at the end, they tell you welcome to the team with some other verbiage kind of buried in there. And I'll tell you, it was just an emotional experience. Like your stomach goes to your throat. I almost dropped the phone. I'm like, Shan, I couldn't even look at my wife. I did, but I was like, I guess we got picked. They made a mistake. They made a mistake. They didn't. There's another Frank Zastoupil spelled Z-A. There's another one out there somewhere. But that is an extremely momentous occasion, and it was a highlight. It was a highlight.
Where did this call sign Chomps come from? Do you pick those? Do they give it to you?
No, sir, you never pick your own call sign. That's a good question. My call sign came from when I was flying the Harrier right here out of North Carolina. And I went on my very first MEU, which is Marine Expeditionary Unit. You go out and deploy on a ship. And we went out to the east. We went out east, and the guys just started making fun of me for good reason, because I had big teeth. So they called it chompers. It got shortened to chomps. And that's kind of the genesis of that call sign. So they picked on me for a physical attribute. So I'm going to get to pick on them here in a couple years too, once I'm out.
That's funny. As the number 4 pilot, boss, Captain Kesselring, gave you a lot of responsibility in the debriefs. And I'm folks who haven't seen this is one of the most fascinating things that I saw in the film and that I witnessed was those debriefs. They happen every time you go up and practice or go through your demonstrations. But you, as the leader of those debriefs, you had to be kind of part coach, part instructor, part kind of hard-nosed guy too, because that's where the growth to me really seemed to happen. Am I right?
Yes, sir. You hit the nail on the head. The demonstration is the demonstration, but you don't learn until you pick it apart. And that's what we take very, very particular to that team. So as the number 4 pilot, whether it's me, whether it was Jamami after me, or whether it's Stalin on the team right now, or who for next year as well, whether it's going to be Trash Blaster, those individuals are responsible for ensuring the learning, for ensuring everything that just happened out there in front of the show. Stuff that hopefully the crowd never even saw because it was so minute, but we pick up on that we can ensure that we fix for the next time. And it is tough. It is tough to find that way to communicate to your peers, to your brothers and sisters that you're flying with every day, spending 18 plus hours a day with, for 300 plus days on the road with, how to communicate that across and maintain healthy relationships. It is a challenge, and everybody has to find their own genuine leadership style and genuine communication style to be able to make that happen. when I was on the team, one thing that I was extremely grateful for was Boss Kesselring. He was very, very open to allow me to grow in that role and not to micromanage me at all. And that trust, that relationship that we were able to build has made me respect the man so much, to allow me to have that type of control, to allow me to have that type of small influence onto what that team could perform every day. So that's kind of what the movie you might see in there a little bit, is a little bit of that. But you're exactly right. We go fly for 40 minutes, and then we debrief for up to an hour. And we do that in El Centro. You'll do that 2 to 3 times a day for 6 days a week. We'll do that every single week during the show season. And that debrief is one of the most important aspects.
Yeah, I really, I was watching that, and, Cheese, who people will get to know to see it, you really kind of follow his birth into the Blue Angels, but you kind of see his growth, and a lot of the growth, at least I saw, came from those interactions with you during those debriefs. I thought it was a fascinating way of watching a young man in his role as the first year, learning from yourself, being that second year pilot in the group.
Yes, sir. So for me, I was very fortunate to have 3 years because I was just so bad as a pilot. No, I'm kidding. We had COVID, which froze the team. My first year on the team, so I was very lucky to get 3 years on the Blue Angels. For Cheese, so Cheese and Jamami both started flying at the same time. They were both picked at the same year, and they both started at the same time. And they really got to experience learning how to delete everything they learned how to do in the Super Hornet and the fleet, and to learn how to fly the airplane the Blue Angel way. And so in the movie, it does focus on Cheese because he's about to train the next year's boss. But Cheese and Jamami were both on the exact same page on how they were going and how they were learning how to fly. What's an interesting dynamic there is my background is very unusual for the Blue Angels, going from a Harrier to an F-35, not having flown the Super Hornet or the Hornet my first year on the team, or the Super Hornet my second and third years, never having flown that airplane, but then being responsible for teaching another person how to fly that airplane the Blue Angel way,
right,
when they've been flying it for hundreds of more hours than I have in that seat. So there's a very interesting kind of ironic, twist to the scenario. So that was a little bit of something that we found ourselves a little bit of a challenge with, is having a guy I had hundreds of hours in the airplane by that point, but having never flown it in a fleet since I'm a Marine. We don't even have Super Hornets for the Marine Corps. So it was kind of cool.
You undoubtedly had a lot of confidence in your abilities to even apply to be with the Blue Angels. But can you remember a moment, whether it was in that first training session at El Centro or during an early show, where it actually hit you? I'm a Blue Angels pilot. Everybody has that moment, and it's probably fleeting because you've got so much else going on. But I remember the first time that I actually anchored a newscast. It actually hit me afterwards that I had done it. Do you remember that first time that it hit you? I'm a Blue Angel.
The first time I truly realized it was when you first put on that blue suit, and you're like, man, this is a different flight suit. It's a little tighter than the one I'm usually used to. It's a little more snug in places that I'm not too comfortable with yet. But I'll tell you, the open and honest answer to that one is exactly what you just described. And you kind of see it in that movie, is that very final walk down that we do, the walk back from the airplanes, where we give that final drop of salute, and then we all give each other hugs. And Boss and I kind of I spent 3.5 years with that man. We give each other a hug. I was like, holy cow. Boss and I were just Blues for the last 3.5 years. And that was the final, holy cow, that actually happened. The last 3.5 years wasn't just a dream. We actually just did that for 3.5 years. And we both are standing here side by side together with the rest of our team, both officer and enlisted. There's 154 people on that team. And you look around to all these people that you've been spending so much time with, this is our team. This was the Blue Angels. This is what it's all about right here. This representation of what it was. And that was a very, very emotional experience for me. It truly was. And to see that, I think that's when it finally hit. By that point, it's past tense. So I was a Blue Angels pilot. I was. So it is. Exactly as you mentioned, hey, it is right after that. And it took 3.5 years. Yeah.
I don't know if it was you who said it or if it was Jamami in the film, but somebody said you really have to push the "I believe" button. What is that like? Is that just become secondary for you because you've taken off and landed so many times? But there's such a trust factor there. You have to trust your crew chief because you don't run through the plane. They do the plane. You get in, you sit down, you strap in, you go. But how much is that you have to really push that "I believe" button every time you got in that plane?
Yeah, that was actually Chewy, Kerry Rickoff, one of my
Okay.
best friends, who said that quote. It is absolutely true. That "I believe" button. It is. You're so used to doing everything yourself and having complete control over the airplane and the air, specifically around your airplane, or the on the ground, how you are walking and moving. That now you have to push that "I believe" button in the air when you're surrounded by other airplanes just inches away from you, or when you're flying in a column formation stacked right on top of each other, and the only thing that you can see is a shadow because the guy's afterburners are behind your head, just a foot and a half above your head, and you can't hear anything because it's so loud and rattling your helmet. You can't even hear the comm cadence half the time because it's so incredibly loud and just vibrating everywhere, that you're pushing that "I believe" button, knowing that that guy who's 18 inches away from your head with his afterburners isn't going to hit you with his afterburners. You're believing and you are trusting. You have complete faith in all those pilots around you. You have complete faith in our crew chiefs on the deck, that and every single maintainer that's safe that airplane for the day, that the wings aren't going to fall off, or the rudder isn't going to break, or a door isn't going to open. You have complete faith and confidence in every single person around you. And that's what helps, that trust, as you mentioned. It's very well said. That team is built on trust. And that trust elevates any team to that elite performance level. And that is a key attribute of the Blue Angels, is being able to highlight that trust in every single form and fashion that they execute every single day.
Boss said in the film, the number 4 pilot has the best seat in the house. I can't disagree with that. What was that like? Like you just mentioned, you look over and your wing is 18 inches from somebody else's. That has to be the best seat anywhere.
It is truly the best seat. On Earth, sure. Yeah, I'll buy that one as well. But you look around and you're just surrounded by blue and gold airplanes. But with the best seat in the house, because you get to see everything. You get to see through Boss's jet. You get to see through 23's jet. And you get to see through 56's jet. You also see the ground. You see the people out there that have come to spend their day to help support you, to help support the military, to help support the air station or airfield that you're at. You get to see the local communities. And the biggest part about having the best seat in the house is it comes with a lot of responsibility. So a lot of the coolest things in the world are also tagged right along with the biggest responsibility. So part of your job as the 4 pilot, since you have that best seat in the house, is to back Boss up on a lot of the maneuvers. You're the safety officer, the airborne safety officer. You back 23 up on their sets, how close they're getting, where they're flying. You can tell them to ease it out. You can shift the set a little bit. You can kind of control to help shape that picture of the airplanes through the sky. You can help back Boss up on G profiles over the top, or angle of bank, or whether it's too wide or too hard, where the placement's going to be, or altitudes. You can help back that stuff up in a safety role. By no means are you able to fly another jet, but you can help back things up. And that's a huge responsibility to keep that air show safe. And it's something that I thought was pretty dang cool. But you're right. That is the best seat in the house. Looking around, seeing all these afterburners. I'm a jet nerd by trade, and to see all the exhaust, all the jets so close to you, yeah, it's just euphoria up there.
Yeah, I mean, 400 miles an hour in a 5-ton aircraft, wearing that blue suit with your name on the side of that airplane. Can't get much better than that in what you do for a living.
Yeah. You said the name on the side of jet thing. I would almost say that was cool. That was kind of a novelty, but they could just as well erase that thing because you don't really care about it that much. They could put Marine Corps, or it's already painted with Blue Angels on it. They could put Navy again. That part doesn't really matter. I don't think that anybody wearing that suit, to be honest with you, that their name's associated with it. It is just a fascinating experience, though, to be, for such a small part of your life, that representative to these Marines right here in this room, or to all the Marines right here on Cherry Point, or to those folks that may have one day want to become a Marine aviator, a naval aviator, that 4-year-old kid out in the audience. That's the truly special part. At least for me, it was.
You're a married man. You have
Yes, sir.
you have two kids. 8 months a year, 300 shows. Had to be a grind on your family.
Yes, sir. The family life is definitely a challenge. It absolutely is. But Shannon and I have been married for 14 years now, and we have a daughter who's 6. She was about 4 when we left the team. Our son was 2. We have another kid on the way right now, doing
Oh,
about 5 months.
congratulations.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, we're extremely excited. The family side of the house was actually pretty incredible. It helps you focus on what is truly important in life, and it helps you, whatever your moral foundations are, whatever your character traits that you view as important, your priorities. It helps you really amplify those. It helps you gather what is truly important in your own life, and then you can focus on those things. And for my duration on the team, and even now, it's a very family-focused organization. It's a very friendly to personal aspects organization. And so we were able to kind of focus on our families. We were able to, if it was possible, to an air show site, I would buy a flight for my wife and kids, and they would travel out to that show site. They came to North Carolina when we did the show out here. My wife's been to Alaska and Hawaii, all these show sites at these military bases or civilian airfields. And we were able to bring our family with us to kind of experience those and develop memories together. And that was actually very, very awesome. And not just my immediate family with Shannon and Harlow and Leaf, but my like parents and my brother and sister and my cousins. I got to fly both my cousins in my airplane, in the back seat
Wow.
of my airplane.
That had to be cool.
It was something for the memory books for me. I will cherish those memories for the rest of my life. To see Morgan and Robert sitting right there in the back seat, and we're laughing just as we did when I was young and we were jumping into the river on tubes down in Corpus Christi, to now we're in the same airplane together doing loops with smoke on and hanging inverted and pulling G's. Like, it was just something totally incredible. So the family, it's kind of a catch. You're able to focus on family at the same time as being gone for so long. So it truly is a tax on the family life, but you find a way and you overcome any obstacle, just as everybody does in daily life when something comes up.
Yeah, you sound like a lot like I do because I give my wife all the credit. I mean, I was building a career, and she really did most of the raising of our 3 children, who have turned out to be just wonderful adults. And I got the sense when there was a part in the film where you guys go back to Pensacola for a break, and the kids are running out on the tarmac, and you had your shades on, but you could even see your face and Boss's face and everybody else, how valuable that moment is when your kids are running out on the tarmac and your wives are coming out to greet you. That family time is so precious. You could see in your face the value in that 5-10 seconds of that moment.
Yeah, to see Isla, who's Boss's daughter, and then Harlow and Leaf. I know exactly which scene you're talking about when they're running out to the jet. I will still give Boss junk about me being able to run faster than my kids than he was able to, because he's just old. So I still can sprint faster than my kids than he can. But that was truly remarkable, and you were absolutely right. The families give up a lot, and you mentioned it. You said it a lot better than I did. Shannon did all of the hard parenting. All I did was bring the kids out to see fun things, and then she had to take them back to go to school or all the not so fun things necessarily. So I was very lucky in that realm. So thank you, Shannon, if you listening.
Yep. Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Sheila, on my behalf.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Sheila.
You mentioned it. You're the Marine Corps pilot on that crew that you were on that team. There's got to be some friendly rivalry between the Marine Corps pilots and the Navy pilots, yes?
Absolutely, sir. So the rivalry between the Navy and the Marine Corps is one, but you're at a big disadvantage. So for every 5 Navy pilots that are in the air, 1 is the equivalent. So just think about that one, that ratio. 1 Marine equals 5 Navy. So you're welcome, Navy pilots, for that one. The rivalry is healthy. There's always a healthy rivalry, whether it's the Diamond pilots versus the Solos, whether it's the Marine versus the Navy, whether it's Fat Albert versus the Jets. What you name, whatever rivalry we can try to be a part of on that team that day, and that's exactly how you're going to choose to be competitive. And it's all about healthy competition, to raise that bar continuously, to find perfection, to find excellence. Because when you see somebody else getting excellence or achieving or striving for excellence, then that guy wants to do better, which means that people around them want to do better. And if it's healthy enough, then hopefully that generation of excellence, that culture of excellence just pervades to everybody out there. And that's the ultimate goal of that team, the Blues, is go to air shows and show what a few people can do to try to achieve excellence. And then hopefully everybody else can see that and be like, hey, they were really trying to do good out there. Maybe I'll do something good today. Or maybe I'll pick this trash up off the ground when I'm walking out. Or maybe I'll help my friend today a little bit more. Or I'll study and do my homework more tonight because they were studying and they were briefing and debriefing to pick apart what they were doing. But they looked pretty good up there. But why'd they just go spend an hour before they could talk to us, picking apart everything they did wrong and crushing each other and having the number 4 training officer yell at you for not flying this maneuver correctly, which was my job at the time. So it is something. It is definitely something.
November 12th, 2022, your final show. Was there a tear behind the sunglasses? Was there a tear maybe after that hug with Boss? The salute lasted longer, and you call the salute on that line afterwards. But did that salute last an extra second? And was there maybe a tear that the audience didn't see behind those sunglasses that day?
Yeah, maybe that's the reason we chose to wear the shades that day, was to hide a little bit of those tears coming down. No, there might have been some watery eyes. There definitely was. It's a highly emotional experience. And you're absolutely correct. I did hold that salute just a hair longer than normal for good reason. Because as soon as that hand comes down off your forehead and hits your side, you are no longer the number 4 pilot. Boss is no longer the boss. As soon as his hand hit that side, Boss Scribe was the new boss of that team. So it's a very emotional event. Your parking sign, I think they even mentioned this in the movie, even your parking sign, the names change before you get back. So now you're parked in somebody else's parking spot. And they go around the jet of Pensacola and they scrape Boss Kesselring's name off and put Boss Armitas's name up there while we're flying in that 40 minutes a show. So it's very, very emotional. It's a very cool experience. And then as soon as you're done flying and doing that handshake, that salute, and you go to the wagon there, you sign your paperwork, you go see your families. And then that's the super emotional part, because they had just as much, if not more, in it than you did. And they were working a lot harder than you were. All you did was just fly an airplane for a couple years. And as you said, Shannon was raising the kids, going to school, traveling all over the country. How she flew with 2 kids everywhere with bags and car seats, I still don't know to this day, because it terrifies me. Talk about greatest fear, it's probably that. I don't know how it's done.
Was it different then, going back to what you did before you joined the Blue Angels? You get orders, you're sent at different places, but what was the transition back to, if you call it, normal orders versus the Blue Angel team?
So for me, I came from flying F-35Bs at BMFAT 501 in Beaufort, South Carolina, to go join the Blues. Flew Hornets and Super Hornets there. Very admin, very aerobatic flying, and you're representative in demonstrating what the airplane and people are capable of doing for the nation's military. Coming back to the fleet, before you get back, you're starting to already think about tactics again. You're starting to think about fighting wars. You're starting to think about leadership in a different perspective. You're starting to think about, how do I get back in a green flight suit in front of Marines or sailors at the time, to see how you can best affect the Marine Corps in that capacity. How can I take what I've learned on the Blue Angels, that culture of excellence, that representation, that level of pursuit of perfection and excellence? How can I take that aspect of life and directly implant that into wherever I go next? How can I achieve that impact and be a part of a new team? How can I help build that team to play such a small role in VMFA 542, where I'm currently stationed right here in Cherry Point? How can I help MAG 14 build F-35s on the East Coast? Because we are currently the only F-35B squadron in North Carolina that's fleet operational ready. How can we help F-35 stand up in North Carolina? And those are the things that I was thinking about, getting back to the fleet, back to flying gray jets, and back to a Marine Corps unit, is how to best affect and enhance the organization to which you're a part of. And it is challenging. It is extremely challenging to come from an elite high performance organization that's so small and tight knit to something that's more broad. It's more war fighting capable. More, that is the direct mission, is to go fight wars and be lethal instead of go find loop-de-loops to sheets of music type of deal. So it is a completely different aspect, and it does take a transition time period. It absolutely does. I've been doing it now for 2 years back in the fleet, and it is a very incredible experience. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to come back.
Do you stay in touch with Boss and Cheese and Jamami and Chewy and Whiskers? Have you talked to them since your time on the team?
We talk all the time. We have a big group chat that goes along for anything, whether it's a new baby's on the way, whether somebody gets back from a deployment, whether somebody's going to a deployment. Rocket, who is the 2 pilot when I was number 3, my first 2 years on the team, him and his family just stayed at my house maybe a week ago. Everybody is super, super tight knit. And for 3 years on the team, that's, a lot of people. And so there's 3 different group chats with 17 people on each one. Some of them are duplicated, but it can get busy on your phone if all of a sudden like, hey, here's this, and boom, 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 and just amplify. But that's part of the unique experience. And it's honestly something that I look forward to, is seeing those messages and like, oh man, Brian Abe just had this happen, or Monica, Doc, she had this in San Diego, or Whiskers just got back from a deployment, or Cheese is in Virginia Beach looking at opening a business, whatever it may be, type of deal. So it is awesome. We definitely keep in touch.
Once a Blue Angel, always a Blue Angel. How true is that?
You said it, sir. That is the motto. That is, once you are a Blue Angel, you will always hold those values, and it is your responsibility to continue holding those values and bring them to wherever you come or go or do or execute. It's that lifestyle choice that you are so lucky to be a part of for just 2 to 3 short years of your life, that you now get to carry on into other organizations. That now you get to carry on that legacy. Hopefully a positive legacy and an impactful legacy to wherever you may go next. So that is a challenge. And that's not just a right of saying that phrase, but it's that responsibility when you leave the door, like, hey dude, you were a Blue Angel. Don't forget that. Act accordingly. Go out there and represent well, because it's not just you, it's not just your face, but now it's the green suit that you're representing. It's this fight suit, it's the Marine Corps, or it's the Navy, or it's all those people that you're going out to represent. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge, not just a motto.
The documentary is called The Blue Angels. It's on Prime Video. One of the pilots featured in that film is Major Frank Zastoupil, call sign Chomps, now stationed here in North Carolina at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. Major Zastoupil, I have been looking forward to this conversation for a long, long time, and I really, truly enjoyed it. Thank you for your service to this country, but thank you for joining me on the One-on-One with John Evans podcast, sir.
Sir, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for the Marine Corps for allowing me to do this. Thank you for the support. And thank you to the local community of Wilmington, North Carolina, Havelock, Morehead City, New Bern, everywhere in the nation, honestly, that supports our military to such a great extent. That is truly remarkable. And that gives us that little bit of motivation to keep going out there and keeping the war overseas instead of coming from over here. So, sir, thank you so much for having me on board.
A big thank you once again to Major Frank Zastoupil for taking time from his very busy schedule and joining me for this week's podcast interview, and for dedicating so much of his life to serving his country. We do want to wish the Major and his wife the very best as they prepare for another addition into their family as well. Once again, the movie that he's featured in is called The Blue Angels, and you can see it right now on Prime Video. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. We do care what you think about our interviews, and the more feedback we have from great friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps, and the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.